Hi, everyone. This is Phil Mattia with the Feliciano School of Business. Today's topic is very timely. You're listening to the Business Edge podcast. The topic of today is what if colleges do not reopen until 2021? Our guest speaker is Dr. David Axelrod. He is in the Department of Economics, a professor there at the Feliciano School of Business. So welcome, Dr. Axelrod.
Thank you for having me again.
So Dr. Axelrod has taped several podcasts. So on the Business Edge channel, you'll see several of them. Most recent, he talked about the economy as well as a stimulus plan. So I urge you to take a look at those, to listen to those as well as he has others. He recorded earlier in the year a series of podcasts that are rather interesting. So as you all know, we are in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic. Today is May the 1st. Just to put a timestamp on it, in the United States, we have over 1 million coronavirus cases, approximately 65,000 deaths. We are in the process of slowly opening up the country. 31 states are either in the process of reopening or will be opening by next week. So a lot of things have changed since our last podcast, which I believe was about 2 weeks ago, and things are changing rapidly. One thing on the Business Edge podcast, we have done several of these podcasts to talk about how the coronavirus is impacting all walks of life, all segments, all industries. We talked about coronavirus impact on the economy, the stock market, the cruise industry. We just recently done one on the accounting and auditing, how it's impacted that industry. And one thing that's even more timely is how it's going to impact higher education with respect to colleges. We are remote learning as most other universities in the United States. Actually, all universities, I think, are all remote learning for the spring semester, which is coming to a close. Summer semester at the Feliciano School of Business, we're also going to be remote, online. But the big question mark right now for all universities is what's going to happen in the fall, meaning in September. So Dr. Axelrod was kind enough to join us and talk about his opinion and thoughts and insights on this, which I know all schools right now are struggling with, as well as parents and students are trying to decide what to do for fall, whether to have in-person classes, whether to do remote, hybrid, or maybe students skip a year and come back next year. So a lot of things are in motion here, and there is really no consensus amongst all the universities on what path they're going towards. So with all that said, Dr. Axelrod, what short run effects can students expect to see if colleges do not reopen until 2021?
Okay, well, thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you. Well, first, to answer these questions, it's going to be useful to clarify the distinction between short run and long run that economists use. While there is a temporal element, like the short run is typically in months and long run may be years, the short run refers to decisions where some resources are fixed, while in the long run, all resources are variable. So for example, universities that have been expanding their facilities may be committed to paying off loans for years into the future. In the short run, these are part of their fixed costs, which gives them less flexibility in how to modify their expenses. Other fixed costs of operations would include IT maintenance, security, and administration. Much of these are part of the background with which students usually do not directly interact. So what is likely to change in the short run? Well, face-to-face instruction will be mostly eliminated. Likewise, there will be few, if any, on-campus activities. This means the elimination of live attendance for sporting activities, theater and music, seminars, clubs. Those that can be communicated online may still occur, but only doing so if the production of the event itself is consistent with social distancing. This will also be true for advising and administrative issues. Courses will be almost all online. Some students might prefer this, but for many, this will reduce the value of their education. Indeed, we need to recognize that students go to college not just for the book learning, but also for the full experience that college traditionally offers. So some aspects would include the networking potential, the camaraderie and school spirit. For some, living away from home for the first time. and all the other cultural and personal development aspects that a campus life provides. So those who are close to graduating are likely to continue their studies. They want to get done. However, for some, delaying their education may be the most efficient use of their time and resources. With less in-person time with instructors, students will take on more direct responsibility for their education and assignments. Performance will be more heavily prioritized as class participation becomes more remote. Beyond this, students will likely see fewer adjunct faculty and office assistants, which will imply larger classes online and longer waits when dealing with registration and payment issues. Technical issues such as available bandwidth might be associated with glitchy videos and remote lectures. But all this deals with their scholastic experience. If the universities remain closed until 2021, or even beyond, it is because we are still dealing with the pandemic. This means students may experience greater personal losses in their life or a longer lasting economic downturn. So these will be added stresses and uncertainties on top of the November elections, which are approaching, and any change in the executive administration that occurs there. So everyone is going to learn a lot more about themselves.
True. I mean, we're, as you know, because your day job is you're a professor at the school, everything is online now. And that remote learning is interesting because you have faculty who have never taught online before. And within a matter of, I think, 8 to 10 days, they had to turn their courses fully online, including yourself. So there's an education for the faculty as well. I think once now they've seen the technology, have used the technology, are probably more comfortable with it going forward, assuming whenever this pandemic ends through the vaccine or we get to a better place. It'll be interesting to see if they continue on with that technology or the universities continue on using that remote learning, as well as the faculty, I think, are be more capable of adopting to it. So you talked about the short run effects. What are some of the long run effects?
All right, well, with the long run, there's going to come greater adjustments. Schools will need fewer classrooms, dormitories, conference space. There's going to be more investment in IT. We can expect over time, older faculty will be encouraged to retire earlier to make room for younger faculty that are more experienced with remote instruction, both as a student and an instructor. Since many of the challenges will be faced economy-wide, we can expect a further shift in the demand for majors to support information infrastructure, healthcare, AI, logistics, behavioral studies. Those are the ones at the boundaries of psychology and economics. Will be important as people will be guided to new habits and patterns and attitudes that support social distancing and decreased physical interaction. The need for greater space will impact urban areas, workspaces, production design. In particular, some of the economies of scale that have enabled our high material standard of living may be diminished. So people will likely substitute into greater spiritual and religious fulfillment. Something that gets referred to as the transformation economy.
One of the things I've been hearing about, especially with elementary schools that are online as well, the children who do not have high broadband access, and there are rural parts of this country that do not have broadband access. We all take it for granted that we have Wi-Fi in our homes and it's pretty fast, but there are parts of this country where it's not accessible and it's not as strong as we are accustomed to here. So it'll be interesting to see if the colleges go fully online in September. What do those students do? The ones who don't have the broadband access, that have the high-speed internet?
Well, again, short run versus long run. Short run, they're going to scramble, right? They'll try to be in parking lots, near restaurants, Starbucks, that will have Wi-Fi. Maybe local governments, maybe even federal government will, subsidize these places to keep the Wi-Fi available. But in the long run, we're going to have a greater investment in that information infrastructure for two reasons. One is, if we're going to have more online learning and more online everything, we need to have a greater bandwidth. But there's another thing, and that is, if we build up those resources in rural areas, it enables people to move out of the urban areas into the suburb and the rural, which will help with the social distancing. Now, rural areas may not be so happy about that because they'll have more people. But if we're trying to create greater distance, that's one of the ways to do it.
Yeah, you mentioned Starbucks. It's interesting. My local Starbucks has a drive-through. You're not allowed to go in, obviously. And there's always 4 or 5 cars in the parking lot just sitting. And I look in the cars, and they're typically young people. And what they're doing is they're using the Wi-Fi for Starbucks, which is free. So your point there is spot on. I think you're going to see a lot of students using that free Wi-Fi from a Starbucks or another retail or another chain. I know the House Democrats are proposing in the next stimulus bill, I believe it's $50 billion for broadband, to bring broadband to rural areas. Now, I don't know how long it takes to build up broadband or what that time frame will be, but I know that's something that's been talked about for a while, which seems like it should be done. It should have been done years ago, but this is not a political conversation, so we'll see. So my next question, do you expect market segmentation to occur?
Oh, definitely. Social distancing is going to require that fewer students occupy classrooms. However, this is not going to be done by increasing the number of faculty, since universities will not be able to afford more instructors. Rather, face-to-face instruction will become a premium modality, while online classes will become the standard. There will be an economic pressure to increase the efficacy of online learning as the need for better educated students increases. Still, face-to-face is likely to be preferred, both as a more three-dimensional experience and for the networking opportunities. So this will accelerate a market segmentation where those with greater resources will be able to afford the eventually scarcer classroom seating. But this could still be beneficial. The face-to-face class will have a lower student-to-instructor ratio, which likely improves the quality of instruction. Meanwhile, online courses will become a more affordable option, enabling a greater range of students to receive a college-level education. Another segment may also expand, and those are the degrees earned by testing alone. So some schools already provide this as an alternative. For example, in New Jersey, there's Thomas Edison. For some students, the online experience may not provide much of a difference to self-guided independent study. At an even lower price, students could take a test or paper, make a project, which, if satisfactory, would earn the course credit. So it kind of takes social distancing into academic distancing. This may be particularly appealing if AI is used to grade essays and problem exams.
But one of the criticisms with online learning is it watering down the academic experience? I know some schools are going to pass-fail as opposed to a letter grade. I know some elementary schools are going completely pass-fail. And the argument always is the academic integrity of earning these degrees or diplomas by reducing it. And I know we're in a unprecedented time in our country, but does that change how employers may view the degree, knowing that these are students that went through 2 or 3 semesters of online learning, which is rich in content, but then again may have been structured in a way to accommodate the pandemic and all its negative effects?
Well, that's clearly an important question. At the same time, businesses may look at it in 2 ways. One, as you pointed out, maybe students didn't get the quality of education that previous years have. But by the way, whether or not pandemic or not, we were heading more towards online classes anyhow.
Yep.
So that issue would still be there. But the other thing is this, they may look at the students that still manage to get their degree with everything going on, and they'll use that as a signal that these are motivated. And so there's kind of, two things that are going on, right? One is what is the education you're getting? And what are you signaling about who you are as a person as you're getting your degree? So in some ways, I would say to students, hang in there, get your degree. If there are some things you need to learn again, afterwards, you can still do that. But if you show that diligence, that is something an employer wants. They want to know that if you get thrown something, you can still work with it, because this pandemic and other crises, they're not going away. So if you can show you can, get through this, that's a good sign about who you are.
Yeah, and the tuition piece is always critical, and it was critical before the pandemic, and cost is always important to students in light of the student debt that these students are dealing with when they graduate school. So tuition is important. And now with the or it's not a recession, because you taught me that. I remember one of our podcasts, we're not in a recession yet. It's 6 months, right, for recession?
It's technically 2 quarters.
Okay, remember. See, I paid attention.
It could be as short as 4 months, but yeah, we're
getting there. We're
getting there, yeah.
So, over almost 30 million people apply for unemployment over the last 3-4 weeks. So now tuition cost is even more important. I think students are going to be looking at that more than they did a few months ago, because they may have lost their job. One of their parents may have lost their jobs, or maybe scholarships may be a little bit different. So, what changes can students expect to see in tuition?
Well, I would say eventually it's likely that face-to-face courses, if they're going to be provided, will be provided at a greater tuition. And that online courses are going to be offered at a lower price, at least for a little while. Universities might also move to a form of prefix, where the price of a course includes all its study materials. So, for example, this might be done via a greater reliance on Creative Commons resources for online classes. There's already a push in that direction anyhow. Since face-to-face classes will most likely be taught by the most renowned professors, they will likely want to use the materials they've developed, meaning it will also be part of the increased price for the course. So another advantage of smaller face-to-face classes will be seen when future pandemics force universities to shut down campus again. These courses, when they go remote, but they'll have a smaller number of students, maybe only 8 or 12, and that will still be a better learning experience than taking online courses with 50 to 100 students. So I would expect that there will be a 2-tier pricing system going forward.
Yeah, and the other part of the student experience is living on campus as well as the classroom experience. And I know it's a big source of revenue for universities, because if all universities went fully online, it would still collect some form of tuition, but having students on campus is critical both for the experience and the campus life experience, as well as revenue. So what changes do you think students can expect to see in room and board rates?
Yeah, well, there's going to be a lot of change there. If we're going with social distancing for a while, here's some things that are possible. Okay, first of all, having 2 to 4 students in a dorm room or an apartment, that's not going to be possible, right? So it's likely that rooms will become single occupancy, right? Your traditional dorm room will be single occupancy. And apartments will be reserved for married or domestic partner housing. And with the reduced supply, the price for room and board will increase. However, since those living on campus will be there, because they're taking face-to-face courses, they will also be more likely to afford the higher prices of having their own room. So this may be one way universities will limit the revenue declines in the era of social distancing. However, we might also see some of the surplus dorm rooms or student apartments become a fringe benefit for younger faculty, especially researchers that have a need to be on campus to do their work.
Yeah, another area that gets affected is student government fees. So if with colleges with that fixed cost, students if they're learning online, they won't be receiving those benefits. So how will colleges deal with the fixed costs, such as those fees that students will not be receiving while they're online?
Okay, well, I would imagine that some of those fixed costs will be absorbed into the greater tuition for face-to-face courses. Again, short run, long run. Short run, universities will be operating at a loss. Okay, they're not necessarily going to be able to make that up immediately. Some colleges are going to shut down permanently, and that's going to lead to a greater concentration of students at fewer schools. Now, this will help the remaining schools to cover those costs. In the longer run, schools will decrease the footprint required for students to be on campus and expand the infrastructure to support online learning. And many of the other experiences that students have, as far as clubs, clubs will be online. So maybe every classroom will be wired so that even the face-to-face sessions are viewable online, and that might help reduce costs for online education. Of course, all of this is going to increase competition between faculty to be able to teach a face-to-face course, which could put greater pressure on the collegiality among faculty.
Yeah, I mean, we could have another podcast just to talk about that topic, the impact. That's a whole nother discussion. That's good. We can spend time on.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
The $1 million question, which all schools are struggling with right now, is what's going to happen in the fall. So, what do you think is going to happen? Will you expect to see a decrease in enrollment as a result of campus closures?
Well, I want to consider the conflicting factors in this. All right. So, like, first, when the economy's in a downturn and jobs are more scarce, it tends to reduce the opportunity cost to go to college. So in that case, enrollment tends to increase in response, especially if there's public funding. On the other hand, during a downturn, families have lower income, which makes going to school more financially challenging. However, the current situation has yet another factor, and that is the absence of the full on-campus experience is going to reduce the perceived value of going to college. So I think we are likely to see lower enrollment nationwide. Although, as mentioned before, there might be fewer schools with larger enrollments. So this could also mean an increase in the focus and motivation of the students that do remain, as they're going to have a higher priority for learning itself to complete their degree in a timely fashion, and so maybe less distracted toward attaining their goals. Beyond this, schools like Feliciano School of Business will expand the educational model of a 4-year degree to a 4+1, a BA with a 5th year to also complete an MBA. Another alternative will be acquiring a 1 to 2 year general education foundation, and then a series of 4 to 6 course certificates that students earn through a lifetime of changing careers. The last may become more attractive as online courses become standard, because the prospect of 4 or more years spent online in a world that will be changing ever more quickly is just not going to be as appealing.
Absolutely. So the government, as we all know, over the past month or 4 to 6 weeks, however long it's been, through this several stimulus plans, and I've lost count of how many trillions of dollars have been given to unemployment insurance and given to the hospitals. So a lot of money have been, and rightfully so, that they've given back to handle this or minimize this, the effect of this pandemic. The one area which is interesting, which you raise here, is will the government subsidize college education?
Well, look, as market segmentation develops and online education drops in price due to its lower marginal cost per student, subsidized education will increase because it'll be more affordable. So it may be similar how the ACA subsidizes health insurance, right? So with the ACA, it provides a subsidy for the second lowest cost education. The online degree. So those that want the face-to-face experience will pay for the difference. Those that choose the test-only path might be provided some finances to study on their own. So in a world of increasing technological dependence, it will be essential that almost everyone get an education, something that lower income families cannot afford without assistance. So if social distancing becomes the norm for a long time, there's going to be no feasible alternative to an online education. So part of the affordability is that room and board, as well as physical textbooks, are going to be eliminated. So of course, along with the subsidized education, there may come an expectation, even a requirement, that everyone either work toward a degree or at least take ongoing courses towards certificates. So, not dissimilar to the requirement of having health insurance once it's been made affordable.
Yeah, I mean, change is tough in higher education, as you know, whether it's changing curriculum or changing policy, it takes a little bit longer than it does in the private sector with companies. So it's everything you're saying here is just fascinating to see how this all plays out, because we're going to see it in the next 3 to 6 months, because September is not that far away. It's only a few months away. So
no, not at all.
and it's May 1st. So in our world, the world that you and I live in, it's fall already now, because students have already registered or are registering now along the way. So, but anyway, what are some of your final thoughts on colleges not reopening until 2021?
Well, first, it's difficult to imagine how college education and the experience around it returns to what it has been recently, except for maybe the most affluent, which over the span of history is what it was, right? The difference is that with modern technology, higher education will be much more widely available, but without the full campus life. So, I mean, there's going to be much more conflict and the politics around the inequality inherent in all this. And there will be inequality. Look, just as we are likely to see, like, for example, with food production, greater prices, and medical care, right? There's going to be more telemedicine and an increasing cost for in-person visits and transportation, right? With social distancing, there's going to be less mass transit. There's going to be increasing prices for private transport. And that's going to lead to more people traveling little except for work. And it's going to be increasing the share of people who are going to live, work, go to school, find entertainment, exercise, and connect completely at home or within walking distance. So, in some ways, this is going to be similar to what feudal times were like, except with better technology and more developed markets. On the other hand, there's a potential side benefit that we might actually end up with a healthier ecosystem and might avoid some of the worst of climate change. So, look, all of this is going to exaggerate the literal distinction between old school and new school, which suggests that maybe one of the duties for faculty will be to take at least one online course a year themselves, preferably from a different discipline. And why? First, so they can actually experience how courses are being delivered, which gives them a better idea of what needs improving, and to get a better sense of what is it to learn something they do not already know. It also has the advantage of encouraging interdisciplinary understanding. And, look, this is going to be about connecting our minds and expanding the academic community, even as we're keeping our physical distance.
Yeah, a lot of good, interesting points, David, as always. We'll see how this continues on, and I'll have another podcast with you in the next month or so, because I think things will get a little bit clearer. I think universities will start sharing how they're delivering their education for fall. They have to, because it's May. You would think by June-ish they'd have to start releasing, maybe even earlier. So I think everyone is struggling with this because of this has never happened before. So, or maybe other universities are kind of looking around, seeing what their competitors are doing, or just maybe obviously faculty have input and students have input in this. So it'll be interesting to see how this thing goes. But again, I thank you all for joining me, and thank you, Dr. Axelrod, for your time. And for those that are listening, please check out his other podcasts about the pandemic and the impact, as well as his other podcasts on topics that are of interest to all of us. So until then, we'll talk next time. Thank you all.
Bye-bye, and thank you again.